What's going on, MBK Lounge family? I'm so glad you guys tuned in today. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. You guys know that this is a show that is really about helping men be better, do better, find their purpose, achieve. And this episode is near and dear to me because we're going to talk about mental health. And I think it's kind of a hot topic right now, and that's not why I'm talking about it now. I'm talking about it now because it just means a whole lot to me as a father. I have two sons. There's just a lot that I think men have to deal with, and we don't have a patent on it. But I really think that we need to talk about mental health. And some of the reasons why I want to talk about men specifically is because from a mental health standpoint, there are some distinct things that drive or cause us to be where we are in terms of how we see the world. It's shaped by societal norms, emotional expectations, developmental transitions, and relationships. So when I think about all of those things, it really made me want to have this topic in the lounge today. So you all know that I can't talk about anything by myself. I have to have a conversation with somebody. And guess what? Today, my guest is Anneka Dockery.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm so glad that you decided to come into the lounge today.
Thanks for the invite.
And I'm looking forward to all of what we're going to talk about and share. I want to start at the very beginning.
Okay.
Because everyone, I just told them Anneka Dockery, but they're like, well, who is she?
Who is she?
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
How you arrived at who you are, your title, and all of those things. So
okay.
I'll turn it over to you for a few moments.
Okay, so I went into the counseling field. I didn't start off that way. I promise you, when I started undergrad, I was an English major.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And because I love to write, love to read, all those things.
Okay.
And it got to a point where I started looking into what could I do with this, be an educator or whatever, but that wasn't driving me. So then I switched to psychology.
Okay.
Switched to psychology, and I just kind of been rocking with that since. So when I graduated bachelor's, and I found that there wasn't much I could do with a bachelor's in psychology, I was like, oh my gosh. So it took me a minute to kind of figure out what did I really want to do with this degree. Then I ended up running into counseling. So I grew up in a broken home. My parents were divorced. So I always had this thing, was I want to be the savior and keep families together.
Right.
I'm going to be the one to make sure everyone's going to make it. We're going to have a great family unit. And so I ended up going into the counseling field, more so marriage and family therapy, because in my mind, I thought this is going to help me save all the families.
I love that.
So my husband was in the service, and we moved around a lot. And so I found a degree program that kind of was good for me when we were moving. I wasn't losing credits, because that's always hard starting over at a new school.
Right.
So then I graduated with my degree, my master's in marriage and family therapy counseling, which has been great. And then after I graduated, I did a lot of outpatient work for low-income families, Medicaid families. I did that for a couple years before even coming into private practice. So a lot of my training has definitely been, with underserved, like I said, Medicaid populations, people on Social Security disability, all those things. And then I did that for years. And then during COVID, my husband was like, I think you should go remote. You can do this all on your own. He definitely was very encouraging of Anneka,
that's one for the men. That's one for the men.
He was encouraging, you should do this, and I think it would be great. Because he's been, with me on my journey to finding my footing. And my degree. He's like, you went to school, spent all this money, you're not gonna waste it. And here I'm like, I can't do it. And he's like, no, we're doing it. So he was very great and kind of pushing me when I couldn't push myself.
Right.
So he helped me get my LLC set up. We were talking about names. So I came up with the Better You Counseling Services.
Okay.
Because I always talk about how can everyone be the best version of themselves.
Oh my goodness.
A Better You. And so that is the name of my business, is A Better You Counseling Services. And then So I was fully remote during COVID, and then 2022 is actually when I decided to open up my practice in Middletown here on Main Street, and now I do face-to-face. I still do virtual, so a lot of people still like it. You know, it's so convenient.
I could be at home.
Easy. It's easy to tap into. You don't have to worry about like traffic, leaving work, or like a lot of people will like hop in their car and talk. Like it's been so helpful. But also me opening my practice was for people who want to do face-to-face, because I think there's also something very vulnerable in face-to-face therapy also.
Very much so.
Right? And so I've been, and that's where I've been since.
So, but here's what's cool. I love the fact that you wanted to, based on, you know, the road you're on, you wanted to be someone who would try to really help people who were in similar circumstances that you talked about growing up. It's really cool just to hear the passion behind it, because this show is really about trying to help men tap into everything you just talked about.
Right.
And if they're in a relationship, how to be the person in the relationship for it to be the best that it can be, right? So for me, it's like, fellas, you need to be the catalyst behind having the best relationship you can have in the house, right?
Correct.
And it was cool to hear your husband was living that.
Yeah, he absolutely was. He was so supportive. He would be so mad at me when I would be like, I'm quitting. He'd be like, no, you're not. He would be so upset. But I understand like his frustration too, because he's also seen my own struggles trying to get to where I am, trying to like come into the therapist that I am now, like all the trainings, the learnings, like all those. So he's witnessed it firsthand, and so he was definitely been a pivotal part of my journey into like the therapist that I am today, and the one that I continue to hope to grow into be.
So that's why it's really cool to hear your story up front, because I think, again, we would love, from a show standpoint, for wives all over the world to say that about their husbands, or for girlfriends to say that about their boyfriends, right? Or I'll go one step, for sons and daughters to say that about their dad. You see where I'm
about
going,
their fathers,
right?
Absolutely.
So this show is really about men, right? But it also includes anyone who watches that have men in their lives that they care about.
Correct.
So this question I'm going to ask you is pretty basic, right? But when you think about therapy and someone's coming to see you, if it's a male, you know, boy or man, are there certain things that you think about right up front when they're coming to you, even before they talk? Not that you're being presumptuous, but are there certain things that you consider? Because this show is really about what we have to deal with. And I'm wondering, is that something that you actually consider before you even talk to someone? If it's a guy, these are some things that they might be bringing to the table.
Typically, when a male reaches out, my first question typically is like, have you been to therapy before? And if they say no, I want to know thoughts, feelings, like I want to know how you feel about it, because preconceived notions and those assumptions definitely can be barriers in like the therapeutic process.
So people come to see you and don't believe it?
Yeah, and so yeah, absolutely. And so typically when there's like someone's reaching out and they're like, you know, I found you on Psychology Today, I'm looking for a therapist, and I'm always like, well, you know, thank you for reaching out. Have you been to therapy before? Like that's always my first thing for males. I do it with females too, but like for males, absolutely off the bat. And then after they tell me kind of like their thoughts about it, feelings about it, and I don't ask them to go into detail during like the phone call or email, because like if they choose to work with me, I'll go deeper in that in our sessions. But I want to know, because I'm looking for, number one, if I'm going to be a good fit, first and foremost. Am I able to help break down whatever barriers you have so you can feel that therapy actually works and is working for you? And then after that, I say, what are you looking for? I ask them, what are they looking for?
So you mean they can say something where you might say, I can't help you, or is it, I'm going to make sure I'm following? Because I guess when you say you want to make sure you can help, so there could be something that someone may come and want to talk to you about that maybe they're better off going somewhere else. Or
absolutely. So I'm very big on like rapport building, do no harm. And I tell all my therapists, and I actually have it in my intake, if I am not the best fit for you, I'm going to find someone who is, because I believe in the therapeutic process. And so it is very imperative when you're talking about therapy that whoever's coming into your space, it's a vulnerable time, it's a vulnerable moment. You're about to embark on embellishing the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of you. So you want to create a safe space.
Right.
And a lot of times it's very hard to get there when you already come with like boundaries, blockages. And so if a guy is like, I'm not really sure, I've never been in therapy before, I will also ask, like, do you feel a male therapist is what you need?
Right.
More relatability.
Right.
Maybe you'll be able to like let your guard down because
Right.
you're talking to someone like you. And I also ask that too.
So it's funny, I have a whole bunch of questions here, and you're talking about what you do with someone when they first come. So when I think
Sure.
about guys, one of the questions I had was around, early on we're taught to man up, right? And I think in that whole man up thing, I don't need a therapist.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's a real
listen,
thing.
I could handle whatever's going on, right? So, talk a little bit about that issue, and how that presents a problem. And is that part of why you ask when someone comes in?
So
Okay.
all those like generational traumas and like general stuff that we pass on, from like our parents, and so on and so forth. Those are real things, and they. I always talk about like when you receive information, it's almost like we'll call it like a seed has been planted, right? Yeah. And so once the seed is planted, it's either going to grow like a flower and you prosper, or it's going to be an icky, ugly weed that you try to pull and it just won't go away.
Right.
And a lot of times when it comes to emotionality, it's a weed. It is not a beautiful flower that looks great. It's not a sunflower or a lily, and so like those things definitely impact the way that we talk about emotions, do emotions, express emotions, and even how we feel. Sometimes it's like, someone will feel something like, nope, I ain't feeling it. You try to pack it back in a box, take a deep breath, and you keep moving, right? And so, yes, like those things definitely impact our psyche in regards to what do I do with this emotion? Should I even share it? If I share it, I'm going to be like, what's the word? They say a simp. Am I going to be a simp? Am I weak? I don't
Are you looking at my notes? Because that literally is one of the issues.
Yes, I don't want to be weak and can't, and like no one's going to do. So like there's all these negative perceptions around emotionality. Right. And the thing is that these things are also connected to women, because women still feel the same way. I don't want to talk about it's a real thing. Right. And so like when we fall and you have your parents, suck it up, man up, like what you crying for.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. So those are seeds that get implanted in our psyche and they stick.
So this whole thing around expressing emotions, I've talked about it on a couple of shows, and I opened even today about having sons, and I want them to know that it's okay that you've been given the vast emotions, right? And they're okay to be expressed.
Yes.
The question is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think it's a little bit of both.
And you alluded to it already.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think we can't have one without the other. The nature without the nurture. So typically, so I always tell people like our parents are going to be our first loves. They're also going to be our first heartbreak. And it's going to come in the form of some sort of emotion, not all the time physically, right? They're going to teach us, they're going to talk to us, they're going to give us hugs and kisses and show us all the great things, but they're also going to discipline us, and they're going to show us and tell us what not to do. And a lot of times, depending on the individual's just like perception, their thought process, their psyche, it can come in the form of a heartbreak via disappointment, via hurt, via I'm not heard, or you don't understand me, or I'm not seen, or you're always mean, and that's it comes via that route.
That's an actual child quote.
Yes,
you're
right.
always mean.
Yeah, so it comes via disappointment and like hurt, I'm misunderstood, all those things, and so and also we have to deal with the society factors too, right? So it is a nature and a nurture like system that we live in when it comes to what do we really do with these emotions, and it does like permeate or manifest in men different than it does in females.
It's funny. So one of the things that I have here, and I got to get to it because as you were talking about, our emotions, right? I was thinking about friendships, right? And I saw something recently about men and friendships, and I didn't have to read it because I know it.
Okay.
So we just talked about nature and nurture, it's a little bit of both. Men just aren't good at friendships. We're just like what is that? And I'm asking it's weird because my mind is split where I innately, when guys get together, we get together around something, around the game, around, something, whereas women tend to just be able just to get together. And we're also not good at maintaining friendship. So talk a little bit about, first, let me know that is true, because I believe it's true. I see it.
Okay.
But also how that affects us from a mental health standpoint over time with not having as many friends. Because I think that's the real problem. Like if we can only get together around the game and I can't get with you unless it's around something, then I think we tend to have fewer friends. And that's one of the things I was reading about.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about either from that does exist and what that could lead to, and then how we could just do better?
I do think there is some truth to that for sure. I mean, I feel but I feel the same way about female relationships. I feel like even with female relationships, like we might conform them, but they're hard to keep too. I think that from my experience in working with men and listening to their stories and then like supports, right? Friendships is not like part of their support package. Typically it's wife, girlfriend, if that is something that they have, mom, dad, siblings, children. Rarely do I hear men talk about friendships. Rarely. And
meaning when they're talking to you.
Yes. When
they probably don't have any. I mean, for real. But go ahead.
I would say that. I would say that. Yes, that's a factor. Also, I agree. Like trying to have it, because women are such like nurturers, right? In the way we talk, and the way we're trying to always have like a sense of community.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that men do or want either, except for around the game, right? Or sports.
Right.
So I can see it in those circles when family gathers and get together, but I don't know if I'm of a protective factor. So I'm thinking more so like men are like protectors, right? They want to keep everyone safe, make sure there's no danger, make sure things are getting done.
Right.
And I wonder if that's part of the psyche when it comes to integrating other male relationships, because the other male's probably thinking the same thing. So then it becomes, do I got to protect myself from you? Versus like I'm protecting myself from external factors, right? Like I don't know, how can I trust you? Like there's a lot of like mistrust. Loyalty is always a thing.
Yeah.
And I just think that when it comes to being vulnerable, that is the thing that's missing. How do you be vulnerable, I guess, with another guy? I mean, my female brain is like, oh, just do it like we do it, right? However, I'm sure that is not the case, right?
It's not as easy.
Yeah, it's not as easy. So I'm not sure what could be done to break that outside of don't be afraid of your truth. Don't be afraid of being authentic.
Right.
It's this, this always like, the the ops, like what are we like what they call it, optics.
Yeah.
So what happens on the outside, right, and how we show up in that, how we look in that, how are we like carrying like the status quo or whatever, and those things become factors and variables in vulnerability. Like it makes a person not want to be vulnerable. So can I trust you? Like, are you side-eyeing me? Like, are you seriously, like, yeah, right. Like, are you right. Like, are you smiling in my face but talking about me behind my back? All those things. So I think all those factors play a part of, like, if you have two men in a room and we can chop it up around the game, we can talk stuff on around the game, we can laugh, we can joke, right, around the game, but outside of that, can I sit in myself and look at you and be vulnerable? And
I think earlier, just taking what you've already shared, you said it's a little bit of nurture, a little bit of nature. Maybe there are some things that, if there are, fathers watching, that maybe that there's something they can do to intervene earlier, before their boys become adults that can, help them to express themselves.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like,
I can see that. I think early intervention is always a great thing when you're in the family unit, for sure. But I also think, the way we parent our kids is also about our own experiences, right? And our own traumas and the things we're trying to protect them from. Like if I had horrible friendships in school and my daughter's like, oh, mom, like this is happening, I'm going to be like, look, this is what we do because of my experience, not so much of like, what do you want to do or how can I help you navigate this? And I think we don't talk about it from the aspect of the person versus like what we feel. We're going in protective mode, right? So if my son is talking to, his dad about some, guys just kind of like not treating him right or being knucklehead, like knowing my husband, he gonna be like, no, we ain't about that. This is what you do, because you're going into protective mode. You're not going into nurture mode. What do you need? How can I help you navigate it? Like that. So it is a different mindset. And I think because we bring our own experiences into the way we see our kids and how we want them to do, it's very hard to say, okay, self, this ain't about you. This is about so and so. So don't say what you would do. Ask them what they want to do. Right. So I think it's very hard to do that.
Yeah, I was smiling because I have because you're the professional. I'm just like the host on the other side of the chair, and bullying was one of the things that I was reading about, and it's hard because when you're taught to man up, you're taught that you don't need help, you're supposed to be tough, then someone's bullying you, the effect that can have on you over time. You know what I mean?
Right.
But one of the things that I wanted to ask about, because we've talked about various things around how men think, boys to men or what have you, but one of the questions I have is, are there common signs of things like depression or anxiety in men that often goes unnoticed?
That's a good question.
Or gets misread, right?
It gets misread as anger. It gets misread as arrogance.
You peaked.
No,
That's literally is the back end of my question. So continue.
It gets misread as anger, arrogance, egotistical. That's how it gets misread. So typically, like, it's you'll see a guy, for instance, if a guy comes in an intake, and he's like, my wife told me I need counseling because I'm angry. And I said, okay, right? And so we go through the intake and they decide to like take me on like as a therapist. I'm always like, tell me about your anger. And it's like, I don't know, like I hold stuff in, I don't talk, I'm frustrated, I don't have an outlet, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, okay, like, what areas do you have supports? Trying to go into it. No, it's just me by myself. What do you do? Oh, I work, I come home, do whatever. Okay, but what do you do? Like, what are you really doing? Nothing. Why not? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with the feeling. It goes back to vulnerability.
Wow.
I don't know what to do with it. So it gets stuffed, it gets packages, it gets boxed in as, the self is trying to live life, deal with stressors, friends, family, kids, all the things. And there's no outlet or I don't know how to create one because I already feel I'm at my max with life, kids, wife, girlfriend, whomever, every single day. And so it comes off as you're being standoffish, as you're being like, you know, all the negative side of emotionality, right? And typically depression manifests in males in the form of anger.
I had no idea until I started. In order to ask you certain questions, I had to, like I said, look. I'm like, wait. What does anger and withdrawal? I mean, I could see how that can be, especially anger. Maybe withdrawal, maybe.
So some of the basic symptoms, symptomology of depression, and it's the same thing in anxiety too, right? It's isolation, withdrawal, lack of pleasure, not doing enjoyable activities anymore. All right, irritability, anger, frustration, feeling overwhelmed, restlessness, racing thoughts. Like all of those things are symptoms of depression.
Wow.
Right? We overeat or we eat less. You know, we sleep too much or we sleep less. We feel agitated. We feel on edge. You know, like we don't. So like all those things are symptoms of depression. And so when someone is like, I'm angry, all right, especially in a male, I just wait, number one, to see if they would like to, you know, do services with me. But then I'm like, but what's behind the anger?
Right.
Like the anger is keeping you safe. So anger is not a bad emotion, right? And people talk about it as it's horrible. But what makes anger bad is the way that it is expressed, not felt. And so we feel it, and because we don't know how to regulate it, we don't know what to do with it, right? We express it loud, it's aggressive, sometimes physically, sometimes verbally aggressive. And so it's loud, right? Because we don't know what to do with it. It just makes us feel almost like, I said, like you're having like a Hulk moment. You just want to like bust out of your body. And sometimes anger feels that hot, and it could be that heavy for people. So anger within itself is a protective factor. It keeps us safe. It keeps us guarded, right? It keeps our brain starts pumping us full of adrenaline. So we're trying to figure out what to do, what not to do, how to keep the self safe. And so like, if someone is like, I'm angry, I'm like, okay, tell me more about this anger. Typically it's always on the surface. Well, I just get so irritated, or like I'm always triggered, or someone's pissing me off, or whatever the case may be. It's always external. And I typically let them go through that first, and I say, tell me what's happening inside though.
So how do we, one of the things, not one of them, obviously I hope that someone's watching and they're hearing themselves through you. How do you know when you need help? and I know it's not 1 + 1 = 2, right? But there's got to be. But how do you know? And maybe you can answer, because I'm sitting here going, it's not like written down somewhere necessarily.
There's no manual. There's no manuscript. You know what? I don't know. I guess it's all dependent on the person, to where they feel like if they've hit max capacity, and in their mind, they've tried all options. Right? I think typically for most people, therapy is a last resort. Therapy is not the first choice. This is the last choice. And I think people will tap into therapy as a last choice because they don't want to either ruin what they have, or they don't want to ruin themselves, or they're not trying to, I guess, create more of a mess or have more chaos. And I ask that question, you know, I say, so tell me about some of the factors that made you want to seek therapy. I ask, you know, I want to know kind of like what was happening. But there's typically a buildup. For most men, it's always a thought, but it's never an action to go into therapy.
Because of all the reasons we've been talking about so far.
They'll think about it and think about it. And they might even be like, I'll say, you know, oh, I need a therapist. But it never becomes applicable, like they actually don't do it, right? So the thoughts are there. It's just something, there's a barrier internal. It's an internal barrier, not an external one, that has gotten created and is stopping them.
I am. It's funny because you're talking about a lot of the things that point to some of the issues that I have written down. Like I was talking with my wife the other day about how men define themselves through what they do. Right? you know, like if I'm a lawyer, right, and I lose my job, that's like a big deal and it's a little bit of not just the fact that you're losing your income, but I define myself by what I do.
Because you're a provider, and once that is taken away, then what are you really providing? And if you can't emotionally tap into how you show up emotionally, how you provide emotionally, then the only thing that the self knows is how you provide physically.
Right. And the problem with it is that if I'm only what I do, if there's a change in that, then emotionally, right, I'm a wreck. Like before I became my profession, there was me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like my clothes that I have on, I mean, it does present a certain image, but it's not who I am.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Correct.
I think for us as men, and we take on these things, and I think some of it is, and you've been alluding to it, it's societal. Like, this is who I'm supposed to be. For example, let me land the plane around like masculinity. You know, there's a certain way I have to be. We talked about man up before, but it's even more than that. How I'm supposed to show up, like you said, the provider. You know, I've got the S on my chest, right? So if there are things that make me feel less than that, then that could be a problem.
Correct. Absolutely.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about too is shame.
Okay.
When you do lose certain things like your job, when things happen to you, whether they were when you were, especially, I won't even go back to when you were younger, but just the whole way we deal with shame, you know, one of the things I was going to ask you is, what role does it play in our mental health struggles, especially around vulnerability and failure?
Shame and embarrassment are huge, and even guilt, even feelings of guilt, you know. And the thing is that, like, when it comes to the self or the psyche, all those things play on the ego.
Is that the first time we said ego today?
I think the second.
Oh, okay. I'm like, man, how do we not get the ego? Because ego was a big deal.
Yeah, I think it plays on the ego. And if I am not who I say I'm going to be, show up to be, that I think that I am mentally, all right, like you said, outside of that, who am I? And I think a lot of times people forget who they are at their core, the authentic part of self. But yeah, when we have shame or we're feeling guilty or even the embarrassment, it causes people to withdraw, to isolate, because it's almost like the vision that you have of yourself and the vision that you portrayed has been tainted. It just completely fell apart. And so now it's like the fantasy is gone. I've lived in this disillusionment. Oh my gosh, this is real. And everything in the internal self starts to just crack, you know, basically crack. I say fragment a lot, right? In therapy, I'd say we fragment. And we start fragmenting, like, you know, a puzzle that we can't put together, and we're trying to snap the pieces and it's not fit, and we get frustrated, and the frustration and the irritability will actually exacerbate, all right, those feelings of shame, embarrassment, and guilt in a negative way, and cause to withdraw more, to isolate more, to get more angry, right? And we shut the world out and we shut down. So those feelings are not self-serving. They definitely impact in the opposite way. There's a few people that I have run across or met or talked to that uses those things to propel them. You know, like they're like, no, I'm not going to let this get to me, so I'm going to do A, B, and C. You know, I think we have to come out of the place of, I'm not good, I'm not worthy, you know, I'm just a failure, or I mess up everything. Those things definitely can keep people stuck.
Are there some myths about men and mental health?
Like,
I don't know. Are there some things?
You know what? If there is, I don't know.
Okay.
If there is, I really don't know.
Okay, because what I mean by that is there are some things that people just believe, and you're like, that's not true. You know what I mean?
I mean, I think
especially when it comes to men, and if not, that's fine. I
mean, I think generally speaking, even if you just take the basic that, like, therapy doesn't work. You got to go to somebody else, talk about your problems. You know, why you just don't talk to so and so or
it's
so
funny
and so.
It's funny because you're saying that in a guy posture. Therapy doesn't work. You ain't got to go talk to somebody else because that is so guy. That is so guy.
You know, I just even if like I know a couple male therapists, and even in their experiences, you know, they're talking about like the barriers of talking to a guy in therapy. It's a real thing.
Right.
Like you got to break down this. Whatever that is, I don't know if it's just like, let me see what you about, or, like, are you on some BS, or do you? I don't know what it is, but even that has to be. It's a real thing that you have to break down, and it's very rare that men come in ready to talk unless they are at their wits' end, and typically it comes in the form of a relationship.
Meaning,
like.
Someone encourages them?
No, like, you know, I don't know. I think I want a divorce, or me and my wife are gonna separate. Or it's like something in that is like really challenging them, and literally at the end, like, I don't know what else to do.
Got it.
Right. My wife said if we don't come to therapy, she's leaving. Like it's typically it's typically in regards to something they hold dear in their heart. And for a lot of men and women, it's the person they're in love with. And once that starts to get tapped, you typically see a lot of fragmentation. And for me, I use that as a window to go into all the other things.
Right. So let me say that. Let me ask you this,
Okay.
right? So there is so much that we can talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
What I wanted to do today was I wanted to help men see some of the things that we do and see that there is first themselves.
Okay.
That there is an outlet, right?
There is.
But let me ask you this before we begin to go. It's what can we do as men, right? Like, help us out. Like, what are some things that we should think about? That we should be open to.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
I'm just gonna first say I am not a male, and I am not a male expert on the things that men should do.
Be nice, fellas.
Please,
be nice.
Please. However,
Yeah.
however, I will say, I understand that the biggest thing about vulnerability is landing it in a place that it can be trusted, that it can be held dear. I talk about emotions and feelings with any client. If I give you my heart and it's on the table, are you going to let me bleed out? Or are you going to try to resuscitate me and put blood back in? And that's vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it is very scary. It's a very scary place to go, especially if you can't trust yourself.
Yeah.
When you start talking about it, you can keep yourself together. Because sometimes emotions can be so big, so heavy, so just intense that you're scared when you start opening up and talking about it. Like you don't know what to do after. And that's a very big thing in therapy too. Like, opening up a person, especially a guy who's talking about something heavy, dear to their heart. If I can't put you back together before you leave, you're going to have a horrible week. You're going to have a horrible 2 weeks.
That's true.
And then what's going to happen is you probably don't want to come back and see me because you opened up so much and there was no closure of your heart bleeding out. And so you go back out the door raw, thinking, not sure what to do, right? And that also will stop a person from coming to therapy. Oh, she opened this box up and now I don't know what to do. So it's always going to be about how much do you trust yourself? I and any other therapist, we're part of your journey. We're part of the process, and we can only do so much.
Right.
But you have to start trusting yourself enough to say, hey, I know me and I trust me, right? And I'm going to put trust in myself that as I'm going through this process to embark upon therapy or talk to my homeboy, wife, friend, whomever.
Right.
That not only am I doing it to have an emotional release internally, I'm doing it not just to show vulnerability, but I trust you with my heart. And it's very hard to trust people with your heart these days.
Especially for guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like I think it's a matter of, if you try or you want to embark upon the journey to be in therapy, right? going back to what I said earlier, I always say, what are you looking for? Do you really know what you're looking for? Do you really know what you need? Right? Do you really know what you're trying to accomplish? What is the goal? Right? Emotional regulation is hard. We can learn tools. We can figure it out. But sometimes it hurts. Feelings hurt. Right? Emotions hurt, right? And we want to run, avoid, or whatever.
Right.
I think it takes a very person that you have to trust yourself more than anything else. And if you don't trust yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, and your action, it's very hard to go to a stranger, right, and put that on the table.
Wow.
And I would encourage any male to do research, talk to other people who's been in therapy. Even if you're thinking about it, have consultations with therapists, because you can have a consultation and not pick them. Right.
Just to get to know them.
To get to know them, hear what they're talking about, to see if it resonates with you, to see if it's a fit for you. Do those things, because that might be the only way for you to feel comfortable enough to even start the process or try to start the process. But if you are boxing, and you're anxious and you're normally not. You're irritated 90% of the time and that's not you. You're not eating right, you're not sleeping, you're restless, like you're carrying all this anger, like your shoulders are tense, you're having these headaches. You're about at your capacity. And so let's not keep stuffing before you get to the danger zone. Like, let's try to kind of empty that box so you have more mental capacity to deal with whatever you have.
Wow. So what a great way to end the conversation. First, I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Really appreciate you taking the time. I would love for people to be able to get in contact with you if they choose to. So share with the people, all the ways they can find you.
I am on Psychology Today under Anneka Dockery. Anneka is spelled Anneka. And my website is www.abetter-you.org. You can reach me through there. I'm at 120 West Main Street. All right, that's the office location. My email is office@abetter-you.org, and my business number is 302-635-0991. So you can reach me via those ways. And like I said, like, if I can't help you, I will definitely find someone that can.
That's what's up. Anneka, thanks for coming into the lounge.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, fellas, listen. Today was all about talking about mental health. And I hope that you found yourself. If you didn't find yourself, because you're doing just fine, maybe there's somebody in your life that you can help watch this show and get what they need. Either way, I appreciate you tuning in. See you next week. Be blessed.